Hi, friends. Welcome back. So, headline Federal Reserve holds interest rates steady as market focuses on timing of the 2024 cuts. And, we've been talking about this for a while. What's the Fed doing? And I've been telling you the same thing. They're not doing anything. They're just going to not raise, not cut. And it may be like that throughout the year. We'll see. It's funny though, because if you listen to everything that Wall Street says, they're just like, hey, we're going to be cutting is March. And people go on TV and say that. And then people go on YouTube and say, oh, yes, they're going to be doing like 7 cuts, these kind of things. Again, I've never said this stuff. And the Fed, in fact, in their language, they're saying things are moving into better balance. So we're going to take a look at the quotes exactly from the meeting today. So this is, here's a quote. It says, the committee judges the risk to achieving its employment and inflation goals are moving into better balance. And the basic gist of this is that I'll give you guys some numbers and you guys can tell me where you're at. So it says here, workers receive an extra 4.2% in their paychecks over the course of 2023. So this is the question I pose to you. If the average worker is getting an increase, say last year of 4.2, are you greater or less than that or about the same? The issue is that, and this is something you'll see in a lot of charts and data, is that yes, it is true that wage growth is more than inflation these days. However, everything's going to depend on your particular situation. So for some jobs, they didn't get a pay raise for maybe a decade, and so it didn't really keep up with inflation. And so the idea that maybe some jobs, yes, have bigger wages than inflation right now, but is it still enough? And that's the question I pose to you. Everyone's going to be different on that. Now, whether or not the Fed's going to be cut anytime soon, March unlikely. This is the actual quote coming from Powell. Based on the meeting today, I would tell you that I don't think, again, this is from Powell, I don't think it's likely that the committee will reach a level of confidence by the time of the March meeting to identify March as a time to do that. But that's to be seen. So he always tries to use it as vague as language as possible, essentially not want to piss off anybody, but it is what it is. This is part of the job. He's got to be really careful with his language. The markets went down today. Dow down 300 points, and the NASDAQ was down a couple percent. We talked about this before. Google took a hit. I think it was like 6%, something like that. The basic gist of it is that people were betting, and this is market-wide, that AI is really, really awesome, and all these companies are going to make tons of money in the future, and that's the future, bro. So my opinion on this stuff is I just think it's a lot of hype. That's my opinion. Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that the technology is completely worthless. Someone mentioned in the comments that AI is useful for repetitive tasks and something like coding. I think we have a coder in our audience, which a lot of people have said that coding is good. I think accounting is going to be another one, and there's going to be other things that we're going to be able to use it for. But I just personally don't think it's as great as you think it is, meaning that it's not necessarily going to be your lifelong buddy that you can talk to and have personal relationships with. We'll see. But I know that sci-fi wise, we're all kind of waiting for the AI and the robot to live in our house and do that stuff. But I think we're a long ways from that. That's just my opinion on that stuff. Other news which I want to point out as well, I know that the Fed is kind of the headlines, but there's other really interesting headlines that you want to pay attention to. One is the dollar's really strong right now. So if you're looking to travel abroad, live abroad, or anything like that, go. For real. Dollar's really strong, and it makes a big difference. Anyone who's been abroad, you'll notice it. It makes a huge difference. So we live in Korea. It's very noticeable. I've mentioned to you guys several times. Dollar is strong. One thing though that's not so great though, and this is a headline that I'll probably get brushed under the rug, and I'm just pointing this out to you. This is 5 hours ago. I'll read it. U.S. Treasury to hold largest ever bond auctions to plug budget deficit. So essentially, we don't have enough money. That's what it is. 5-year, $70 billion auction in April to be the biggest sale. It's pretty big. Now they said they're not going to increase it again, meaning that they could go even bigger auctions, trying to find people to buy U.S. debt to keep our system going here. I'll read some more. It says the U.S. Treasury will hold some of its largest ever debt auctions in the coming 3 months in an effort to fill the yawning federal budget deficit. So yawning just means growing, or big is probably the exact definition. We don't use this word this much in the USA. I never use this word. Not in this context. I yawn in terms of sleepy, but not yawning like big. The Treasury said on Wednesday it would increase the size of auctions at most maturities for the next 3 months, with 2 and 5 year auctions hitting record sizes. The 5 year auction in April, the $70 billion, would be the biggest ever for debt with maturity of 2 years or more. So I think that's a pretty significant thing that we're borrowing tons of money to keep our system going. Moreover, this is our national debt. I show you guys this every now and then. In my personal opinion, this should be a political issue, but it's not. People are more concerned about who's going to what bathroom and what movies Disney are playing, that kind of stuff. I just sometimes I just feel like I'm the only sane person in a room of crazies, but that's just me. I care about numbers, and I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. Yes, our national debt, I think, I gotta calculate here, but I think it's like this numbers are so big. I think that's trillion if I look at this number correctly, because there you got 1,000, there you got ones, thousands, millions, billions, trillions. Yes, 34 trillion, and that's 101,594 per person. There's a lot of things that cost a lot in USA. So this was an interesting one. This is all done by the Peterson, and you guys can find it all on the internet. They have some really good data. They track this stuff. But our healthcare costs in USA are really high. So this is average person, 12,000, and then it's like over double of what people pay in Japan, double what people pay in France, Australia, etc. You guys can see this up for here. Also, too, this is the money coming in, 4.9 trillion. I believe this is yearly, so this is for 2022. And then total spending 6.3. So we're spending more than we're bringing in. This is our government. Moreover, this is 2023, sort of like where the budget goes. Now, Social Security is going to be expensive, and this is something that, again, this would be another political issue for me. Again, it's just numbers. How can we keep this system solvent? The growing costs, actually, you guys can see this here. I'll kind of scroll back between the two. Is going to be Medicare and Social Security and the interest on the debt. That's in 2033. So this is the chart for you guys can see like our biggest cost to our deficit. This is essentially an iceberg ahead, but we've known this stuff for a while. We just have too many old people and not enough workers. The USA is not alone in this. A lot of countries are going to be facing this. China has population decline. The USA will go in population decline. I don't quote me exact date, but I think it's something like 2070, something of that. And this is things that you can just see in birth rates and trends, right? Moreover, talking about kind of our system as a whole, this was another news that was a pretty big news, but it'll probably get brushed under the rug because there's just so much stuff going on. So, right, we have the Fed, we have our the bond thing we're talking about here. And also, too, one of our banks really went down. It was like 46% in a day at the most, but then I guess it finished at like 36% down. This is New York Community Bank. They were one of the ones who were bailing out other banks. That was my understanding of it. And we can see here it may be part of connected to the commercial bank stuff. So I've talked about this for several times where we have a real, I guess, another iceberg here, which is the commercial bank market. Commercial real estate thing. The basic gist of it is, if you don't know, everyone's working from home. And so then the people who took large bets on commercial real estate thinking that they could rent out their offices, right, to businesses that need offices, not so great. And moreover, a lot of people are leaving the big cities, going to smaller cities because you don't have to work at said places. So just the economy's really changing. And then again, you have a bunch of commercial real estate underwater. They may be able to convert these into residential. That is a possibility. But the problem is, where's the money going to come from to renovate said things when even the buildings themselves now are underwater? So we will see if New York Community Bank is going to make it through this. I believe they cut their dividend as well. So that's much, much less attractive to investors, of course. And there's another headline which I want to point out as well, which I think is key to understanding what's going on in the market. And this is Walmart. So it's interesting. I mentioned to you guys before that Walmart's been very aggressive in their marketing of their manager jobs, right? This is unusual. Like, they're just bragging about the salary of these things because they raise it. And, I guess you get with stock options and stuff like that, you get $400,000 a year, which is pretty good. And you don't need a college degree, right? So we talked about this before on channel. It's probably not the great job, but with that kind of pay, hey, you could totally figure out a way to do it. Now, for real. Now, the one thing I want to point out, though, which is interesting when I'm mentioning Walmart, is when I read this headline, we'll read it here. Walmart plans to add more than 150 large format stores across the USA. I feel like what this is telling us is that Walmart thinks there's going to be more poor people in the USA, and therefore better business for them. I was actually really interested in this because they also said here, Walmart's pretty ubiquitous, that not was it here is 90% of Americans live within 10 miles of a Walmart store. So, they're everywhere, but yet they think, they need more. Basically, they're going to be building, more of the kind of the big superstores because they have some of the smaller ones they convert to big ones, etc. The other thing is that they're also doing a stock split. So I think they're trying to make their stock more attractive to investors. And, there's different ways you can take this. So like I said, one is Walmart thinks we're all going to be poor. Two would be Walmart needs to raise cash in order to do their expansions. And three, they could be right. So, who knows? I've mentioned this before on the channel to where the idea is that if you're like an upper level consumer, you are trading down to lower things, right? And food costs have been through the roof. The other thing too, which is interesting with Walmart, is they're the nation's largest employer. Was it like 1.9 million people or something like that, or 1.6 million employees, right? So the largest private employer in the USA. So they're an interesting company, right? Will they make more money? They're so large. So if any sort of, where they have to pay employees across the board, that costs them a great deal of money, of course. All the other thing is too, they have to worry about shrinkage, right, which is retail theft. Moreover, the fuel costs are really high. So, I don't think Walmart's necessarily like a bad company thing. I think if you had to take a bet on something, this wouldn't be a bad bet, but I'm just mentioning that they think business is going to be booming for them, evidently, because they're expanding. This is at a time when, and they're even bragging about their salaries. This is at a time when, tech companies and stuff like are firing. So I think a lot of people are removing from Goldman or, whatever tech company and going to places like Walmart or maybe doing Uber, DoorDash. I mentioned this stuff before on the channel. And I wanted to talk to you guys about a headline here in Korea that just to give you a sense of like how different life is here. If you haven't seen any of our vlogs in Korea, please watch. I think you'll find it interesting. But to summarize the headline to you guys, free subway rides for elderly emerge as headache for Seoul mayor. Here's another one. Mayors reignite debate on the free metro rides for elderly. So this has actually been in our politics the last couple of days. I mean, it's been a while, but just I've noticed in the headlines the last couple of days. So here in Korea, if you're over 60, I think it's 65 or older, you ride on the subway for free, which is fantastic, obviously, for old people. And, someone asked me, like, why would you travel here? Like, for reasons like that. Moreover, we have better healthcare and it's cheaper. And I'm not exaggerating. It's cheaper and better. And by leaps and bounds cheaper. If you saw the prices of our drugs and you go to the drugstore and you pay like $10, it's like just not very much. Compared to like in USA, you go to the drugstore, it could be like $100. Like it's ridiculously different. It's really, really different. And so this is the kind of stuff that we debate over here. The debate's not going to be like, are we going to completely make it not free for elder people? It's just more like, should we put a cap on it and give them some sort of like card where they can only use the subway 3 times a week for free or whatever, right? But these are the kind of debates that we have. The issue is, though, obviously, 'cause again, just talking about numbers, is that what if you have too many old people and they're living longer than before, right? And then you just don't have enough workers. So how can you keep this system going? In countries like this, though, we do believe in public health and sort of just the good of the public. And so it's a different way of thinking. My personal opinion on this stuff is public transit is awesome. That's all I have to say. I've always known it's awesome, depending on what city you're in, but just the concept of it, because when I was a kid, I grew up in Oregon and public transit's not that great there. And my dream was always just go somewhere like a New York or something like that, where I wouldn't, for example, where I wouldn't have to drive a car, worry about parking, insurance, and all that stuff. And it's just walk everywhere. So I know for some Americans this is a really foreign lifestyle that you could actually exercise every day by just walking. But it is a fantastic lifestyle. And when people say, how do you stay young? That's one of the ways. Literally, we walk everywhere and walk every day. When you encourage people to, use public transit, this just has all types of benefits, be it, environmental, be it cuts down on traffic, be it, it's also just healthy to see other people in the community. The challenges in the USA, though, to, have good public transit is massive, of course. You guys know this, we can go through all the different challenges, but I just wanted to mention, though, that the debates that we have here are related to what you have in USA in terms of costs of taking care of elderly, but very, very different. We're talking about like, yes, we're going to probably keep it free for seniors, but how free and how often? So it's a really, really different debate here. And then the idea of, healthcare being affordable is not really under question. So people don't really argue like, oh, healthcare is stupid. We don't need it. We don't really talk about that. It's more like, okay, again, saying we have too many old people. Should we have checkups once a year or twice a year, that kind of stuff. So it's not like we'd ever just remove it. So they'll probably do these kind of things. For many things, though, is essentially reduce the kind of service that you get, but still the service will be there just because it's about numbers. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on any one of these things. What do you think about the Walmart story, the bond market, the bank, New York Community, and also the Fed? I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you in the next video.